Hello, everybody. Today we're talking about workflow in your accounting practice. I'm going to share what I think are common experiences with my fellow accounting professionals. Whether you are performing accounting work yourself or if you have staff that you're delegating the work to, managing that workflow for your practice is critical. So today we're going to explore some of the common pain points related to managing staff, managing clients, managing time, and managing the overall performance of the firm. I'll introduce myself. My name is Laura Redman. I am a QuickBooks Pro Advisor. I am also a member of the Intuit Trainer Writer Network. I co-authored the QuickBooks Online regular certification and also co-authored the brand new QuickBooks Online Advanced certification for Intuit for Pro Advisors. I also travel with the Intuit Roadshow and attend and teach at some of the national conferences like QuickBooks Connect and Scaling New Heights. I may see some of you out there on the road, certainly hope to, and I'm generally found in the course material having to do with QuickBooks Online. So I run an outsourced accounting firm. I have remote staff. All of our clients are on QuickBooks Online, so that's where my focus is. We're totally web-based. We have multiple clients, multiple staff, and multiple services that we perform at all these various frequencies. So that is where workflow has come to be such an important piece for me and my firm, and really behind what I'm talking to you today about. Our goal at my accounting firm is to deliver quality to our clients as well as profitability to the firm, right? So we offer several core services, and we've created standards for how we're going to deliver them. We charge our clients a monthly fixed fee. So then, in addition to the outsourced accounting firm, I also am co-founder of Cloud Consultancy, which created Aero workflow app and also created the Slate Cloud accounting programs for accounting firms who are doing client accounting services. So we often in our industry hear the word workflow used a lot. For example, an app will tell you about their workflow when they refer to the steps involved in using their program. For example, bill pay workflow might consist of receiving a bill from a vendor, entering the bill, approving the bill, and paying the bill, right? That's their bill pay workflow for that app. So that is absolutely workflow. But as accounting professionals, we often have to use lots of apps together to perform our work. So our workflow may often be the combination of all of the steps involved in the individual apps and, or as well as, in integrating the apps together and in doing any work that maybe not even involve another app. So for us, bill pay, for example, may also involve verifying that funds are available to even pay the bills, or communicating with vendors and requesting W-9s from vendors, right? So workflow itself, the definition of workflow, is that it is a defined sequence of tasks that is planned and repeatable. So the workflow, your work, is the transformation of your resources, like your staff, your computers, and your programs. When you transform those resources into services, this is your workflow, this is your work, this is what you sell. Workflow management is a system to organize the setup of workflow, the training, the performance, the tracking of the workflow. So you need to manage that workflow. Let's explore this from the perspective of an accounting firm. Accountants perform services for their clients, right? Such as paying bills. These services are a series of tasks. You have to enter the bill, that's one task. Somebody has to approve the bill and pay the bill. Each accounting firm has its particular method of accomplishing these tasks. Who does what, using what tools. Now, each of these tasks is also a series of steps. Many of these tasks are similar in nature from client to client, right? Like paying bills. The task may be to pay bills, but there may be several steps in order to complete that task. But sometimes the work varies based on the client, right? Like we know one for sure that usually varies is if you are performing any AR services for your clients, such as creating customer invoices for your clients' customers, or even paying your client's staff. You may process payroll for one client that has hourly staff with overtime pay, and for another client that has salaried staff with health benefits, right? So sometimes our tasks are the same from client to client, and then sometimes they vary. So you really need to be able to document these tasks in order to help your staff perform their work consistently and efficiently, especially when the work isn't performed often enough to be remembered the next time it's performed, such as like a quarterly task or definitely an annual task, or when you're training new staff, or when there's a special set of instructions to perform for a client. Like you may prepare invoices for one of your client's customers, and that company may invoice their customers based on billable time and expenses, for example. And then you go to work on another customer and you prepare invoices for that customer, for their customers, and they may base their invoicing on fixed fees or milestones achieved, right? So this is an example of when we do accounting work for customers and the work varies from one customer to another. And you want to think about how you're going to manage that workflow for your firm, for all your staff, so that they can jump, sort of switch hats easily between the different clients they work on. So defining the work and scheduling it at the proper recurrence interval creates this workflow management system. And that may be a paper checklist, an Excel spreadsheet, or a workflow app like Aero. Now, practice management is a system to organize the workflow from the perspective of the firm. Instead of just thinking about what does each staff person have to do and how are they going to do it, now think about tracking all of the workflow for all the staff for the firm, all the client information, all the employee time, all the outstanding projects, all the documents, and then being able to analyze the resulting information. So why is practice management important, regardless of the size of your firm? Well, so that you can manage your firm and your client expectations realistically, right? You know what's scheduled, you know whether you can take on a new work, that sort of thing. Also, so you can have a bird's eye view of all the work that needs to be done on a given day. And so you can measure the workload associated with a fixed fee engagement, so that you can handle scope creep. And in the big picture, so you can grow your firm and perhaps sell it one day and retire so we can have a life, right? If you're not managing your practice, otherwise, you may spend your day responding to emails and dealing with things that may not be the most important thing. You may miss deadlines, or you may stay up all night trying to finish all the work that's coming at you in your email inbox. You may lay awake all night worrying that client work like payroll or sales tax filings might be slipping through the cracks. So let's take a look at Aero's management dashboard, and we're going to see an overview of a firm's scheduled work. So now we're going to be looking at practice management from the perspective of Aero Workflow app. And again, if you use a spreadsheet or paper, whiteboard, however you do it, these are some things to consider. We're going to look at it from the perspective of using software app. So here we are in Aero, and I'm going to take you through a few of these screens on our Manage menu. First, we're going to go look at the Manage dashboard, and this is sort of a high-level overview, bird's eye view that's available here on this screen to give you a quick overview of what's happening right now in your firm. And from here, you can see how many tasks are due, how many are overdue, how many have been deferred for later. You can look at the different types of work you do. You've got 3 payroll tasks that are still open. All sorts of things you can see from this overview. In addition to that, you can drill down further into specific information. So for example, you may see this overdue and say, what are these? I want to drill down into that, right? So it'll take you, if I click on that, it'll take us to the next screen, and I can see what are these 2 tasks that are overdue. Do they need my help? Look, this one's not even started yet. Is this person, did they show up for work today? Yes, maybe she's just not gotten to it yet. What's the priority on it? Oh, maybe this looks like something that can wait till tomorrow, or no, I need to step in here. That sort of thing. You see what I'm talking about? So we went from the bird's eye view with the ability now to drill in and see Do they need my help? Is this stuff moving? Is it going to happen today, or are we about to miss a deadline? You can see how something's deferred. I can click on either of these and I can go and see all sorts of detail, and we're going to go look at that later. So the next thing I'm going to take you to, we just looked at the Manage dashboard. Remember, that was a bird's eye view of everything going on in the firm. Next, we'll go to Manage Arrows. When I go to Manage Arrows, this is really the heart of Aero workflow. I can see all of the work that is scheduled for today, and I can break down my firm's work into different groups. Let's start first with the big picture of what an arrow means to us. An arrow is an activity, right? Like a task or an email or an appointment that tracks time associated to the work and provides resources to complete the work consistently and effectively, right? So we all have work to do, and there's often this feeling of the need to track time, maybe because you're going to invoice your customers for it, maybe not if you're fixed fee. But in any case, it's helpful to know how long something takes for scheduling purposes. You may also need to pay staff off of it. So from this Manage Arrows screen, I can see all of my arrows. And remember, arrows are activities that track time and provide resources. We're going to keep looking into this. You'll see different sides of this in a few minutes. So from the Manage Arrows screen, I have several options. I can come and group. I can look at all of the arrows or activities that are due today. I can look at them by user. Maybe I want to look at all of the open and due arrows due today by user. I can see each of my staff and what arrows they should be working on. I can see the status and pretty much tell real time what everybody's doing. And I can jump in if I need to. I could also come over here and go by company. Maybe I want to see all of my activities that are scheduled for all my staff by client. So here I can see all the work we need to do for each of our clients. Again, I can drill into this. I can change it if I need to change the date of it, reassign it to someone else, just look at it to see what the status is, that sort of thing. This ability to manage all of the work you do for your clients and all the work that your staff is assigned, this allows you to address an issue before it becomes a problem. I can go to all arrows and just look at everything open and due this week. In my firm, this is how we do our weekly company meetings. We go through all the work that's open and due this week for staff, and anybody has a question about it, kind of get ready for the week. This is interesting, and then you can, of course, group it by staff or group it by customer, however you wish. Okay, so you can see the current and the future work very easily, making it easy for you to allocate your firm's resources ahead of time. Next, I'm going to go up to this Manage menu, and I'm going to go down to Manage Time. Very similar to the screen that we just saw managing all of our arrows or our activities. The Manage Time, though, is showing you any of the time that's been posted by your staff. I have the same sort of options up here on the menu. I can group my time. I could look at all of the time by user this week, for example. Instead of showing me scheduled work, this is showing me how many hours my staff have worked on something. While your staff are doing their work, and we'll look at this again later, Aero is tracking the time associated with the work. So if you are paying staff hourly, they don't have to go punch a time clock in and out. Their time is automatically being recorded as they accept and work on each of their arrows. So I may also want to look at time by company for the week, for example, to see how much work we've been doing on a client. Since Aero tracks the time associated to the work, you're able to view the staff resources allocated to your clients. If someone's doing a lot of non-billable work on a billable client, you can see that. For those of you billing your clients hourly, Aero captures all the time associated to work performed. For those of you using QBO, these time tracking entries are then pushed to QBO so you can pull them onto an invoice. And for those of you billing fixed fee, this can help you watch for scope creep. Let's talk a little bit about managing staff and tasks. As you create this workflow management system for your firm, make sure that your system is easy to maintain. Whether you use a checklist or a spreadsheet or a workflow app like Aero, here are some of the things to consider. How do tasks get on your to-do list? How easy is it to manage the various recurring schedules of different tasks? Because we all perform services. Some of them we do weekly, some of them we do semi-monthly, all sorts of various recurring schedules. Another consideration is, where is the workflow system stored? How do my staff get to it? What happens when multiple people access the workflow system at the same time? What happens when they update it at the same time? If we're sharing, for example, an Excel spreadsheet over the network, does it corrupt the file? Is it going to be okay? So keep in mind that sort of thing. How do you know which tasks have top priority? When your staff come into work for the day and they grab their list of work telling them what to do, which one should they work on first? Your system should have a way for management to view the complete tasks versus the ones that have not yet been completed. In addition, make sure that your workflow system is secure because it will most likely need to store sensitive data. Let's look at how Aero manages the services performed by the firm. And then we're going to look at scheduling these services for clients and staff. So the first thing we're going to look at is the services performed by your firm. So let's pretend that you've just opened shop. I'm an accounting firm. I'm going to do client accounting services. And these are the services I'm going to offer. This is my menu of services. These are the services you provide. Let's look at how Aero helps manage that. So I'm going to navigate to the Manage menu down to Aero Templates. These templates are where you create a type of work that you do, and then you enter some information about that work that you do and maybe what type of person would perform the work, and you create this template. So let's look at one. Let's look at this one, payroll using Intuit Online Payroll. So I'm looking at one that's already been created, but you get the same fields if you added one, right? So you can create an arrow, enter some information. There are only 3 fields here with the red star that are required, but you see we have lots of fields for different type of information. How long this normally takes, what type of work it is. Maybe there's someone in your firm who always does it and you want this to be always assigned to them. What type of role that is when they're doing this work, some name for this type of work, and some notes about it. And then I'm going to scroll down here. Then I can define every step about how to do it. I want my staff to perform each of these steps when they perform this service for my clients. So now, knowing that, let's go back to the same screen that we went to a second ago, the Aero template screen, and you can see that here is that template. Remember that we had defined every step by step, all the instructions for how to do this task. Once you've created a template, you can add it either as an arrow, which means you're going to do it like one time. Maybe you have something called how to set up QuickBooks Online for a customer. And every time you have to do that, you come here and you add it as an arrow and you go do it for that new customer. Or you can add it as a master arrow. And a master arrow allows you to set the recurrence options for it. So this is going to be something that you're going to do time and time again at some interval, weekly, monthly, whatever it is. So if I click one of those 2 buttons, it's going to create either a one-time arrow or a recurring arrow. So then I'm going to go to this other screen and let's look at our master arrows. So you start with the arrow template. That's where you would define the services that your company provides and how you do it. And then you can create this master arrow from it. Once you create the master arrow, so let's look, we've got one here. I'm going to just go into view the edit details about it. I take the template, I turn it into a master arrow, and now I can assign my staff person who's going to do this regularly. I can assign what company we're going to do it for. I can put some more details about the specific delivery of this service. I can scroll down here and look at my general steps for how we perform the service, and I can decide, you know what, this one's not applicable for this client. I might delete this one step. There's something a little special I need to add. I could add a new step. I can sort and change the order of the steps, that sort of thing. You can mark it as billable or fixed fee. And then you come to the occurrence options and you can set up the appropriate recurring interval. And once you do that, you can see here all of the arrow schedules. On these dates for whatever recurrence you set up, this is going to show up on Robert. In this case, this is going to show up on Robert's list of work to do on all the appropriate dates. And he's going to accept his task and he's going to go in, to that task and see all of the steps you defined for him, and he's just going to check them all off and get his work done efficiently, consistently. Okay, let's talk about some of the resources. A good workflow management system will give you and your staff resources. When you're working on a task, you often need something, right? So here, let's talk about some of the examples. We just talked about this, step-by-step instructions to complete the task so that the work is completed efficiently and consistently. For example, if the task is payroll, you may need to remind staff to verify the hours are approved by a supervisor. You may need to remind staff to check whether there was a holiday in the pay period, or to check whether any employees submitted requests for vacation pay. And this may change from client to client, so all the more reason to have step-by-step instructions from when you're working from one client to the other. You also could give them web links to access the procedure guide for how to do this task, and the procedure guide may have more detailed exact instructions, and the procedure guide might have print screens and training videos on how to perform these services. Also, these could be linked directly to training videos, maybe Intuit sites where they have training videos or any of the other software solutions you use. Or these may be very specific links to instructions on how to prepare an invoice for one of your client's customers that just has to do with this one client you're working on. You also could give your staff resources like web links to the website to go perform the work, right? So if you're telling them to go reconcile a bank account in QuickBooks Online, give them the link to QuickBooks Online. And finally, you really need some way to share passwords and security answers and other information like that, because oftentimes we know we can cause this bottleneck situation with our staff when they go to do their work and they can't get on this website they need to, or for some reason they're stuck and they're emailing around, how do I get on, right? So you can make everything more efficient if right at their fingertips they have the information they need to get the work done. So let's look at some more task resources. You want to have some way for your staff to give feedback on how the task was performed. If they had any difficulties, for example, a place for internal comments. This can be helpful later. They may need to document something and it's helpful to have that to look back on later. Also, another consideration when you're designing your workflow management is the ability to reassign the task to another team member, right? That's obvious. We all have staff who could call in sick or go on vacation, and you have to be able to reassign the task to somebody else. A list of contacts related to the client, maybe their insurance agent, their banker, some of their managers, their legal team. This kind of information can come in very handy when we're doing the accounting for a client. We need to reach out to one of these people. Your staff may also need templates and automated methods for performing some of the common activities or emails that you do as a firm. So if you can give them these kind of templates, that will help them. For example, if your staff are doing AP and every time they get a new vendor, they need to send that vendor a request for a W-9, give them that template so that they don't have to think and retype all that information every time, right? It's at their fingertips, ready to send to this new vendor. Another resource is the ability to access a log of the activities for this client that they're working on that all of the other staff have been performing, right? So you, in your firm, it's very likely that you have multiple staff that work on each client. So when one of your staff goes to do some work for a client and other staff have also been working on that client, the staff person may need to see, what did my coworker tell this person, or what did she do, or when was the last time somebody worked on this client, that kind of thing. So the activity log related to this client is very helpful when your staff have this ability to see everything that's going on for this client, and certainly makes it for a more collaborative working environment so that all your staff are really working as a team on that client. You also want to give your staff access to client information such as their tax ID number or their capitalization threshold or what version of the accounting software they're on. And just as importantly, you want to be able to block access to staff members who don't need to see all of the client-sensitive information. You may have an intern working for you for the summer, and maybe they don't need to see all of the banking information for your client. So if you can build in sort of security level, that's really important also. So let's jump back into Aero and see what it looks like now from the staff's perspective when they go to perform their work, and you'll see some of the things I've been talking about. My Aero screen, this is the list of work that I have to do today, and I am the person who's logged into Aero right now, right? So this is my list. I need to get this stuff done. This is my list of work scheduled, and I can see all sorts of different types of activities that have been planned for me. So I'll point out to you some of these different icons. This little paper airplane signifies a task. This clock signifies an appointment. So a task is probably some work that I need to do, and I'm probably just doing it on my own. An appointment may be, it generally involves somebody else, maybe a telephone call or a web meeting, something like that, meeting in the conference room, and then you see the icon of the email, and that signifies some email exchange. You can email in and out of Aero. So I'm going to accept this task, all right? When I click on the icon over here, that's me looking at my list and saying, okay, I'm going to go work on this one. Let's do some payroll, all right? Everybody get your payroll hats on. So I click the Aero icon to accept this task, and here you can see that when your staff do this, they're going to have a bunch of the resources we were just talking about. Here they've got, first of all, their step-by-step instructions on exactly what to do. As they go about doing each of them, they can check the box, and you can see that step is going to be copied down here into the time notes. These time notes at the end of finish working on this task today, whether I fully complete it or not, I might need to work on it later, my time is going to be posted in Aero, and these are the notes that are going to be associated with that time. And again, that does push to QuickBooks Online. In addition to the step-by-step instructions, you can see, let's talk about some of the links we were talking about. I might have a link to a procedure manual. You can see here, SOP, Standard Operating Procedure. If I click that link, I get another tab. And look, this is showing me the firm's procedure manual on how we do payroll. Or it may be as specific as how we do this one line item on this task. You can make procedure manuals as many as you want. And so, and this may have pictures and more detail about it. This is fantastic for when you have new staff and they're learning their way, and here you're giving them all the tools for how to get the work done, as well as when you have staff who maybe have been with you a long time and they have to cover for somebody else, and they may be doing work that they don't do all the time. So if you do something like create invoices for a client in a very specific manner, you might want to put some print screens and just document how you do it. And here it is available right at the fingertips of the staff who had it assigned to them. You also may have links to go do other things, like here we've got a link to a spreadsheet that's showing us some of the salaries for this client. Or you may have links to, what's this? Oh, the Google holiday calendar. Look, it's easy for me to determine whether we just had a holiday or not. These links can be very helpful to your staff. Put any link that you can think of. You might have a link to go into an online payroll and go process the payroll. You may have a link to Intuit's training site. Who knows? Whatever links you can think of. Give them as much as they need. I'm going to scroll down a little bit to the second lower half of the screen and show you. Remember, as we were clicking off each of these tasks as we're getting them done, the steps were copying here in the time notes. If you have something else to say, remember that these time notes can push to QuickBooks Online, and from there they may be pulled onto an invoice. So you may have other notes you want to put here about the work you did. If you don't want them to be pulled onto an invoice, or if for whatever reason you want to make some internal comments, here's this section here. This is where you can add some internal comments. And if you do some of the steps on this task and then you're going to save it and work on the rest of these steps at a later date. When you defer this task, these time notes are going to go away and go with that other time. When you come back in here, you'll see that these first steps are going to still be checked off, but these notes will be cleared out the next time you come into this task, because these notes are about this next time. These notes go with the new time that you're recording. So if yesterday you did these steps, these notes are going to go with yesterday's time, and then the following day you come in and you can track new notes on the other work. Whereas these internal comments stay with this task until it is completed, right? Okay, so there's that area where you can keep internal comments. Next, I want to point out we've got a little bit of information about who we're working on, how long it should take us, that sort of thing. And then I want to show you at the bottom here, we've got more resources. So here's some information about this customer. We've got company information, what version of software they use, their address, their phone number. We've got, remember I talked about that ability to collaborate and have access among your staff to the work that your colleagues are doing for this client. So here are all of the company arrows. These are all of the activities or tasks that have been scheduled for this client, regardless of whether it was scheduled for your colleague Sarah or your colleague Lucy. You can come in here and see all of their information, whether it was completed or not, all that sort of thing. Then we've also got company contacts. So here again, you may have the legal team, insurance agents, whatever people you need to contact that are related to this client, their managers, some of their staff, whoever it is that you're in contact with, you've got quick access to that. And then you've got the vault, and the vault is where you can put everything from passwords, tax ID numbers, anything you can think of, capitalization threshold, any of that stuff. And these are guarded by different security levels. There are 8 security levels in Aero, and when you invite your staff to it, you set what security level they are. So if you put something in a client vault that's a higher security level, staff with a lower security level won't see that. So you have that ability to secure that information here. By the way, all of these grids that you're going to see back when I was on the Manage Aero screen, when I'm down here, these little grids that you see where you can move around through this data in Aero, all of these you can either click on the column header to sort by that column, or you can click the green arrow and you can filter. You can say, you know what, I only want to see Sarah's work, right? Or, let me clear that. You also have the ability to pull a column header up here, and that's going to group it. That's going to show us all of Lucy, and then we'll eventually get to each user and see some of the subtotals. So just wanted to point that out. Those are some great tools for working with that data, right? Because we've got all this information at our fingertips, but we also have to be able to use it easily, right? Okay, so we've just looked at all the resources that you can give to your staff when they're getting their work done. You can just imagine how much more efficiently they can get their work done when they have everything right there. But I want to point out also that when we came into this task, when we accepted this task and we said, okay, I'm going to start doing this work, that our timer started. All along, my time is being captured. And if your browser goes down or you accidentally close this window, don't worry. Aero is taking a snapshot every 60 seconds. So it's going to be remembered up to a minute. Look here, if this timer is going here, let's say I just spaz out and accidentally come click this. Oh my gosh, I got out of that task. I lost all my time, but you haven't. So you can see here that this task was in progress. It's got 8 minutes still recorded. I just go right back into it. My timer is going to pop right back to that time, so you don't have to worry about that. On this timer, it's also a button with some options. I can pause or reset the time on it, and I can edit the time. Let's say that I really had started working on it 30 minutes before this and had forgotten to click and come in here. I could edit the time and add 30 minutes to that. And then I can save and complete it or save and defer it. And the only difference there, in both cases, it's going to post your time through as a time tracking entry, which goes to QBO. In the save and complete, that is going to take it off of your list of arrows because it's done. And your arrow list is now going to be smaller. Yay. And if you're not finished, in this case, we're not finished, we still have some work we have to come back to do. Maybe it's time for me to go off on my lunch and I need to come back and do it after lunch. Or maybe I'm stuck and I'm waiting on some information. So I'm going to click that save and defer. Maybe I'm waiting on client and I click defer. Whee! And we're back at our list. So see this one here, this payroll that we were working on just now, it now says it's deferred, it's waiting on the client. Your manager can see that when they're watching how the firm's doing, how the work is going. That's another real plus for the practice management because the firm can see the status of everything being done. Okay, I just want to point out here also that in addition to performing your work, you can also click on the category. You see how these are blue and hyperlinked? If I wanted to go into edit mode on this one, this is not doing the work mode. This is edit mode on this task. I'm not recording any time here, but I may need to edit it. Now, the lower security levels, that will be grayed out. They won't be able to edit it. But if you're like a manager level and higher and you are allowed to edit in Aero, you may need to come over here and reassign this to someone. I might say, you know what, I've done my piece of it, or all I can do, I need to give this to Sarah. You could make some notes about why. She'll see that right when she comes into the task. Okay, we just looked at that list of arrows, and we all know the feeling of having a list a mile long of things to do, whether it's in your head, in your email inbox, it may be post-it notes on your desk, or it may be neatly and perfectly organized in a workflow management system. You may plan to come in to work in the morning and work on your to-do list, but phone calls come in, new emails come in, and this is a good thing, right? We want this to happen. We want new work, but you have to have a plan for how you're going to handle it. So make a policy for your firm about how you're going to handle interruptions. Maybe your policy is to only work on everything scheduled as of the end of day yesterday, and any new emails or phone calls that are coming in today are going to be replied to tomorrow. The CEO of Zappos has a website called, is it Yesterbox, that has a whole philosophy about this. That's great to go check out. Or maybe you have a system for your firm that allows you to pause the work you're doing, stop, take a phone call, record all of its details with that client that interrupted, not in a bad way, but that client that called while you were doing other work, and then go right back to the work you were doing originally and pick up right where you left off before the call came in. Or maybe you have a different policy. Maybe you have support staff in place that are handling emergencies and calls that are coming in that aren't scheduled. So whatever it is, make a plan for how you and your firm are going to deal with interruptions, because we all know they will happen. So now let's talk about scope creep. That's a different form of interruption in that it was not originally scheduled when the engagement was agreed upon. So you want to make sure that your staff know how to deal with this. Are your clients working with staff and asking for things that are out of scope? And when they do that, do your staff know the exact boundaries of the engagement? How do they know when to say, you know, this isn't part of what we're supposed to be doing? And do your clients know what the procedure is for requesting additional services? And then if the additional services requested are outside of the scope of their fixed fee engagement, can new work requests be marked as billable so that the charges are submitted to the client for payment instead of just lumped in with, oh, I guess that's all part of things we do for that fixed fee that we are already charging. So these are the types of things to think about when you're planning your workflow management system so that you and your staff can manage the work effectively. Let's jump back into Aero and let's go into a task, and let's say I'm going to go back into this payroll task, and let's say that you're working away, performing all of your steps, checking each one off as you go, and a client calls you unscheduled, right? So you can come in here and you can pause your time. So this one stops exactly where you are, and then you can come up to quick links. Now quick links is just a menu that has some of the fast links to go to things that you want to get to quickly. So in this case, let's say a call comes in, you've stopped your other work, and the call comes in which involves someone else, so I usually will call that an appointment. Now let me point out here, just to clarify, we've got task, appointment, and email in both of these sections. Adding a task, appointment, and email means that no clock is going to start. You're just setting up some activity to be performed at some later date. If you use these that say start, that means that a timer is involved and you're going to really start doing the work right now. Not only was it unscheduled and you're going to set up the information about it, but you're also going to start the timer. So let's say someone calls in. I'm going to go here and say start appointment. And all I really have to fill in is the subject here, right? I can say call from Amy, and then I can just save and start. And as soon as I do that, I've got an arrow and my timer started. And I can take notes about it, and maybe I'm going to make notes to set up some more intricate arrow for a later date, whatever it is. I can do all of that while marking my time about it. And then maybe I'll say some notes here like, explained ramification of converting QBD to QBO with inventory. Aha! And we have a nice little phone call about that. That client is happy. I save and complete, or save and defer if I need to do something later on it, right? And then I go right back to where I left off here before. So that is the way that you can kind of have both of these handle your unscheduled work while keeping your work on the unscheduled task, on the scheduled task. Okay, as you organize the, let's call it client fulfillment or service delivery aspects of your firm, keep in mind that some of the components of practice management that we talked about earlier, you'll want a tool for managing your resources, your staff, your processes, how you do things, right? Picture yourself saying, okay, this is my firm, I'm in charge. These are the services that we're going to perform for clients, and this is how we're going to do them here. That's your intellectual capital. Even if you don't pay staff hourly, even if you don't invoice clients hourly, tracking time can be beneficial for you because it allows you to manage your calendar so that you can schedule work appropriately. Set up a system for monitoring your profit on fixed fee work. Also, determine what KPIs, what key performance indicators are most beneficial for your firm, and then track them and watch them. Can you easily, for example, measure the actual time it takes to perform a service versus the estimated time, so that after a few months or so, you can say to yourself, I thought this was going to take about a half hour, but I was way off. This takes about 2 hours of time, and I need to bring a new staff person in, or whatever you may come to find about tracking that sort of information. Or similarly, can you tell the average actual time it takes to perform a service over the course of many instances? This will help you improve your resource planning on the next engagement. So I want to thank you all for joining us today. This was a high-level overview of the importance of managing your workflow in an accounting firm.